You thought Florida was unstoppable. Sunshine, beaches, endless boomtown energy. A place where people cashed out their lives elsewhere just to start over in a pastel-colored cul-de-sac. Where real estate agents became local celebrities and house flippers were treated like royalty at brunch. But now you're watching open houses sit empty. For sale signs that used to vanish in 24 hours are starting to gather dust. And those $900,000 homes in Naples, they're getting price cuts like they're clearance TVs on Black Friday. Welcome to the Florida real estate crash, where paradise is cracking at the foundation. Before we dive into the wreckage, hit the like button and subscribe, because this isn't just a Florida story. It's a warning wrapped in palm trees and pink stucco. Let's rewind a bit. Picture it, 2021. You're sitting in your cramped northern apartment, watching Zillow like it's Netflix. Florida looked like heaven on earth. No income tax, open beaches, and 3,000 square foot homes for the price of a Manhattan closet. You thought this is it. You sell everything, pack the U-Haul, and head south. Only you weren't alone. Roughly 1,000 people were moving to Florida every day during the peak of the pandemic. Builders couldn't build fast enough. Home values shot up by over 60% in some cities within a single year. It was chaos. It was gold rush energy. It was a bubble, and you didn't know it yet. And when you got there, you were welcomed like royalty. Welcome to paradise, the sign said. Real estate agents handed you cold water bottles, and mortgage lenders acted like your best friend from high school. You closed on your new Florida dream home and posted the keys on Instagram like it was a graduation photo. Meanwhile, sellers were cashing checks with commas they'd never seen before. Neighborhoods that once had a Walmart and a Waffle House were suddenly being rebranded as luxury corridors. Everything was booming. Too much, too fast. But behind the boom was a slow burn. Locals who'd lived in Florida their entire lives couldn't keep up. Teachers, firefighters, nurses. They were getting outbid by out-of-staters offering $100,000 over asking in cash. Rents doubled in a year. The same two-bedroom that cost $1,200 in 2019 was suddenly going for $2,800, and that was without central air. People who made the state function were getting squeezed out of the very places they'd call home for generations. And while you were settling into your palm tree-lined street and sipping a mimosa on your new lanai, something darker was already creeping in. Insurance companies were growing nervous. Cities were overheating. Infrastructure was cracking under the weight of all that unprecedented growth. But no one wanted to say the word yet. No one wanted to admit what it was. A bubble. Not a boom, a bubble, and bubbles don't just fade, they burst. But you know what? Even the locals can't live there anymore. Miami, Tampa, Orlando, Naples, all glittering, all drowning in their own success. The average home price in Miami jumped to over $600,000, while local wages still chilling around $50,000. You think that math adds up? Renters were getting booted out of places they'd lived in for decades just so landlords could flip the unit and triple the rent. Floridians were becoming refugees in their own state. And then the insurance crisis hit. So now you're stuck. You've got the house, the mortgage, the HOA fees that seem to rise like the tides, and now this absurd insurance premium you didn't see coming. And no, bundling it with your auto policy isn't going to shave off enough to matter. You call around. You beg brokers. You even try those weird niche companies that sound like they're run out of someone's garage. Still nothing under $5,000 a year. And if you do manage to find something cheaper, read the fine print. One strong gust, and you'll be fighting an adjuster who ghosted you mid-hurricane. This isn't just expensive, it's existential. Because every summer is roulette now. You're watching the Weather Channel like it's a thriller. Red cones, storm tracks, category 3 or 4, maybe a 5. You learn the names of every meteorologist at NOAA. Your hurricane shutters are your emotional support animal. And all the while, you're wondering, is this the year the roof goes? Is this the year I lose everything? You don't even unpack half your boxes. What's the point? Meanwhile, your northern friends who envied your palm-lined Instagram feed, they're sending you articles now. Hey, didn't you move to Fort Myers? isn't your house in that evacuation zone? Suddenly, you're not envious anymore. You're the cautionary tale. Because you didn't just buy into a dream. You bought into a ticking clock. And Florida's not waiting to see if you're ready. You finally get your slice of paradise. You mow your lawn, plant some palms, and then you get your first homeowner's insurance bill, $9,000. You laugh. It has to be a mistake. It's not. Florida's insurance market is imploding. Major insurers pulled out of the state entirely. Others went bankrupt. Why? Because hurricanes don't care how hot the market is. After Ian, after Idalia, after whatever gets named next, insurance companies realize we're just burning money here. And you're paying the price. You either fork over thousands of coverage or go uninsured and pray every time the wind blows. And guess what banks don't love? Mortgages on uninsured homes. You start noticing the shift at Sunday open houses. That buzz, the one where 10 families are fighting over one listing. It's gone. Now there's stale cookies on the kitchen counter, a realtor pacing alone in the driveway, and a sign out front that's starting to bleach in the sun. You hear phrases like price improvement and motivated seller thrown around like confetti. But everyone knows what it really means. Desperation. The party's over, and the hangover is setting in. Even the flippers, the YouTube bros who promise you passive income and freedom in real estate, are vanishing like Houdini. They bought at the top, maxed out their lines of credit, and now they're sitting on granite countertop, disasters they can't unload. The math stopped working. The dream of turning a profit in 60 days, buried under 6 months of holding costs, 0 offers, and a 7.5% mortgage. Some are walking away. Others are renting at a loss. And a few, they're just ghosting the whole thing, abandoning properties mid-Reno like it's the housing apocalypse. Meanwhile, you're scrolling Zillow again, but this time it's different. You're not looking for a dream. You're trying to figure out how bad it is. You see your neighbor's identical house listed for $75,000, less than what you paid 6 months ago. Another house down the block, price cut. Again, you start asking yourself dangerous questions. Should I have waited? Should I sell? Can I sell? But deep down, you already know the value isn't coming back anytime soon. Not with interest rates this high. Not with buyers this scared. Not with a state sinking under its own success. Here comes the Federal Reserve, wearing a suit and holding a sledgehammer. Boom. Interest rates up. Boom. Mortgage rates over 7%. And your dream house just went from manageable to might need to sell a kidney. Buyers vanished. Sellers panicked. Suddenly, it wasn't multiple offers over asking. It was, please just look at the listing. Some markets in Florida are seeing home values drop by 15 to 20%, and inventory ballooning. This is no longer a slow leak. This is a rupture. But you weren't the only one buying homes. Wall Street was too. Private equity firms scooped up entire neighborhoods. Because of course they did. They turned them into rentals and jacked up the price. But even they're pulling back now. Why? Because rent is finally dropping. Turns out, when you price out the middle class and oversaturate the rental market, your guaranteed passive income starts looking like a financial faceplant. Vacancy rates in cities like Jacksonville and Fort Myers are rising. Investors are ghosting on deals. Some are fire selling entire portfolios just to break even. You can almost hear the echo as you drive through these ghost suburbs. Rows of identical houses, some finished, some missing windows, others just slabs of concrete baking in the sun. The community pool, still empty. The clubhouse, never opened. And that coming soon sign with a fake family on it, faded and flapping in the wind like a flag of surrender. These were supposed to be master planned utopias, with pickleball courts, bike trails, dog spas. Now they're looking more like the intro to a dystopian miniseries. Behind the scenes, developers are panicking. They're canceling projects before the first shovel hits dirt. Big names, the ones who use a brag on earnings calls about Florida growth, are now quietly revising their projections and bleeding money. Why? Because their business model depends on constant demand. And when that demand dries up, they're stuck holding millions in land loans and half-baked developments with no end buyers in sight. The math just doesn't work anymore. Not with the triple threat of high rates, high insurance, and an exhausted pool of qualified buyers. Even construction workers, once the heroes of Florida's post-pandemic boom, are feeling it. Hours are getting cut. Job sites are going dark. Some are heading back to other states, chasing steadier work. Others are simply stuck, waiting for the next call that never comes. And when labor slows, the local economy feels it fast. From material suppliers to lunch spots near job sites, the ripple effect is wide. What used to be the heartbeat of Florida's growth machine is now thumping irregularly and getting quieter by the day. New developments across Florida are suddenly quiet. Bulldozers that run 24/7 are parked like abandoned toys. Construction jobs are drying up. Permits? Down over 30% from last year. You drive through some of these half-built neighborhoods now and it feels eerie. No kids, no BBQs, just silence and unfinished dreams. Developers are hitting the brakes because they see the writing on the wall. Oversupply, dropping demand, and buyers who can't afford a mortgage or the insurance. It's not a slowdown, it's a freeze. It's not just mom-and-pop Airbnb hosts who are bleeding. Entire property management companies that sprung up to serve the short-term rental boom are now gasping for air. They built their entire business model on 80% occupancy at $300 a night. But when the market got saturated and the tourists stopped showing up, either because of tighter budgets or tougher local regulations, those numbers collapsed. Now you've got vacation homes sitting empty on weekends, HOA boards waging war on transient guests, and city councils proposing bans to preserve what's left of residential sanity. Even the tourists are catching on. They're looking at that $250 cleaning fee, $150 in taxes, and a 4.6-star review that still warns about roaches and going, you know what? Let's just book the holiday in. The charm of staying in a Florida bungalow has worn thin. What's left are rental units that no longer pay for themselves, owners stuck with ballooning costs, and a housing market that can't absorb the sudden influx of these investment homes coming back online. The golden goose of passive income? It's roasted. And then there's you. Maybe you bought one of these Airbnbs thinking it'd pay the mortgage while you lived your best life elsewhere. But now you're logging into booking platforms and seeing 0 reservations for the next 6 weeks. You lower the price. You pay for a professional photographer. You even throw in beach chairs and a welcome basket. Still nothing. That monthly mortgage payment isn't waiting, though. It's due. And if the rental doesn't cover it, guess who has to? That's right, you. Welcome to the part of the real estate game nobody posted on Instagram. Remember all those investment properties people bought to run Airbnbs? Turns out everyone had the same idea, especially in vacation hubs like Kissimmee, Sarasota, and Clearwater. Now, short-term rental supply is outpacing demand. Nightly rates are plummeting. Occupancy is tanking. And some towns are even cracking down on Airbnb licenses. Your Airbnb dreams? More like Bleed BNB. Thousands of hosts are quietly trying to unload properties that aren't making a dime. Problem is, the resale market is flooded too. It's a domino effect, and you're watching it fall in real time. Also, Florida is ground zero for rising seas and sweltering heat. But for years, people just pretended like the climate stuff was someone else's problem. Not anymore. Flood zones are expanding. Insurance premiums are skyrocketing. FEMA maps are being redrawn like a horror story in real time. Some properties are literally unsellable because no bank will touch them. And let's talk heat. We're not just talking sweaty shirts. We're talking about dangerous conditions for weeks at a time, energy bills through the roof, infrastructure buckling, and a summer that now feels more like survival than relaxation. Climate isn't just a future threat. It's already baking your backyard. And it's not just the physical environment turning hostile. The financial one is, too. Cities and counties are being forced to adapt to climate realities by raising taxes, hiking utility fees, and investing in expensive infrastructure that may or may not hold back the ocean in 10 years. That beachfront paradise you paid top dollar for, it might be underwater metaphorically and literally faster than your 30-year fixed rate can run its course. And while you're sweating through another summer, your local government is debating how to fund the next seawall or drainage system. And guess who's footing the bill? Yep, you. Insurance companies aren't the only ones walking away. Lenders are getting cold feet, too. Certain zip codes are starting to see limited financing options, with some banks outright refusing to back mortgages in flood-prone or high-risk heat zones. Appraisers are adjusting values down. Mortgage underwriters are throwing red flags. What used to be a Florida slam dunk is now a risky chess move. And increasingly, buyers are just saying no thanks. The properties that once sparked bidding wars are now collecting crickets. And the people left holding the bag? You guessed it, recent buyers with nowhere to run. Even real estate agents, the same ones who once boasted about record-setting offers, are starting to whisper the truth behind closed doors. Deals are falling apart at closing because flood insurance quotes are killing financing. Open houses turn into therapy sessions. Buyers want out. Sellers want yesterday's price. And agents? They're realizing this isn't a down cycle. It's a shift, a reckoning. Because when the environment turns against you and the money turns cautious and the dream starts to crack, what's left? A house. Now you're here in a place maybe you bought high. That's becoming unlivable. Maybe you're stuck with a house that's worth less than your mortgage. Maybe you can't afford the insurance, the HOA, or the constant AC bill that keeps your home from turning into an oven. You scroll Zillow again, not to dream, to escape. You're not alone. A growing number of people are leaving Florida. Some are heading back north, some heading west, anywhere that isn't slowly sinking, burning, or breaking the bank. This isn't what you signed up for. But now, you're stuck in the aftermath of a fantasy gone wrong. The numbers are starting to reflect what the headlines only hint at. Florida's population growth, once the envy of the nation, is slowing. For the first time in a decade, some counties are seeing net out-migration. That's right, more people are leaving than coming in. And they're not just retirees changing their minds. It's a family, young professionals, service workers, people who made the state function, the kind who can't afford a $4,000 hurricane deductible or $600 monthly HOA fees just to use a half-broken gym and a pool that's closed half the year. Meanwhile, landlords and sellers are getting desperate. Incentives are popping up like weeds. First month free, $20K in closing costs covered. We'll throw in the golf cart. But it's lipstick on a rotting stucco wall. Buyers have wised up. They're asking harder questions now about insurance, climate risks, and long-term value. The blind enthusiasm is gone, replaced with cautious calculation. And in a market built entirely on belief, that shift in sentiment hits harder than any hurricane ever could. What you're seeing now is a correction, but it's more than just numbers on a graph. It's a reckoning with the reality that Florida isn't immune to gravity. That palm trees can't shade you from economic truth. That sunshine can't offset systemic risk. And while some will double down, hoping the storm passes, others will quietly pack up and drive north past the ghost subdivisions, past the half-built resorts, past the for-sale signs leaning in the wind. Because when the dream turns on you, the only question left is, how long can you afford to hold on? So, is the Florida real estate dream dead? Not exactly, but it's on life support. There will always be people drawn to beaches, the no state tax, the palm trees swaying the hurricane wind. But the days of guaranteed appreciation, of buying sight unseen and flipping for six figures in 6 months, gone. That kind of quick flip investor magic was built on three things: cheap money, endless demand, and low overhead. But today's buyers are staring down 7% interest rates, skyrocketing insurance premiums, and utility costs that rival mortgage payments. The financing landscape has tightened dramatically. Lenders are scrutinizing every detail. Appraisals are coming in under contract. And even pre-approved buyers are pulling out last minute when they see the true monthly costs laid bare. On top of that, consumer confidence has taken a major hit. Between hurricane headlines, foreclosure whispers, and the rise of climate-aware home shopping, buyers are more cautious than ever. They're doing research. They're walking away. And more often than not, they're opting for cheaper, safer markets in the Southeast, think the Carolinas, or parts of Georgia, where the risk-reward ratio isn't quite so lopsided. The Florida FOMO has officially turned into Florida fatigue. And investors, they're diversifying away. The big funds that once pumped money into Florida's short-term rentals and suburban developments are now shifting toward build-to-rent models in more stable regions or cash-flowing properties in the Midwest. Florida still has potential, sure, but the margins are thinner, the costs are higher, and the risks? They're no longer just fine print, they're flashing neon. Florida isn't just expensive now, it's complicated and risky and, in many ways, teetering SO if you're watching from afar. Hand hovering over the contact agent button, maybe pause. Because the bubble didn't just burst, it left a mess behind. And the cleanup could take years. Florida sold the dream, the sunshine, the freedom, the forever vacation. But dreams, like bubbles, pop when stretched too far. And now, under that blue sky and behind the palm trees, lies a market that just couldn't hold the heat. Welcome to the fallout. If you found this video useful, like, subscribe, and maybe check the flood map before you buy.